Well done. A hush falls over the crowd. Well, welcome. I'm calling to order this June 1st meeting of Friendswood City Council. We'll start off with our invocation and the pledges, and our invocation tonight is going to be led by Pastor David Lorenz of First Baptist Church.
Will you bow with me, please? Heavenly Father, as we gather tonight, we're grateful that we get to live in a wonderful community. Though not perfect, it is a great blessing to live here. Remind us of that often, what a great blessing it is to live here in Friendswood, a community full of people who are concerned, involved, and want the best for our citizens. And tonight, as we gather, we ask that you would give wisdom to our city council, to our city employees, and to those who will speak this evening. Help us to work together for a common purpose, to make our community a wonderful place to live, work, play, and worship. We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Pastor. Big crowd. All right. Item 4, council comments. Let me start off by saying we had a funeral for one of our residents on Saturday. Arlene Taylor, Larry Taylor's mother, passed away. She was well known throughout the community for many, many years. Just a great lady, and I wanted to mention it because I went to the service and our own John Ellisor sang a song. He was part of the agenda there and sang a song, sang Others. Is that right, John? Well done, well done. So, man of many talents, so I wanted to bring that up. But anyway, anybody else? I want to say something today.
Well, I promise I won't sing.
Please do.
Some of us would like to hear it.
Yes. Sally?
In the interest of time, I will pass on comments tonight.
Wow.
I'll go.
Ross.
Go ahead.
Well, I can't let my first meeting begin without any comment. First, I want to thank Letty and Raquel and staff, other staff, for their help and guidance in getting me situated and started in this endeavor. And I wanted to bring up just a brief comment on our Memorial Day remembrance and compliment whoever found the Colonel, Helen Strom George, U.S. Army retired, to be the speaker at that event. She did an amazing job of reminding us all of what the Memorial Day is for. So I want to point that out and just ask if next year, if you didn't make it this year, please put it on your calendar. It's quite the event. That's it.
Mine's more on a personal note. I wanted to say congratulations to my parents who in 1963 got married, and so 63 years later today, they have been married, and it's their anniversary, and I'm happy to have them with us still, and I'm just overjoyed that they get to spend the night together.
Nice. When you say here, do you mean here? Or
Here with us, still present, not here,
Not in the room.
Not in the room.
Right.
They're,
Yes, well.
depending on what my dad has managed to figure out, he had 3 different restaurant choices. So.
Oh, yeah. Good for him. Well, well said, Randy. I remember my first council meeting 10 years ago. The mayor at that time said, Mike, in your first year, just don't say anything. And I couldn't not say anything either. So I'm going to tell you not to say anything, so please say what you want. Item 5, public comment. To comply with the provisions of Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate any items not listed on the agenda. As such, the City Council will listen to public comment and may, 1, refer the item to city management for further action, or 2, direct staff to place an item on a future agenda. During public comment, the public shall comply with the council's rules of decorum. Everyone desiring to present comments should have completed the public hearing comment card in the foyer and submitted it to the city secretary at the podium. Each participant shall give his, her name and address in order to provide a public record. Rules allow each person 3 minutes to present information. However, I encourage everyone to be as brief and to the point as possible. Dave Yelovic.
Never been first before. I have a few things. One, Mayor Mike sent me a letter. Thank you. This meant a lot. Mike, rather than just a form letter, your little personal touch really made my day when I got that.
I didn't know you were going to come back. I
Yeah, I know.
didn't mean to encourage that, but
Wait,
okay.
let me read the small print. Oh,
Go
I didn't
ahead.
see that.
Yes.
But, no, but it did mean a lot, so thank you. You were just handed a handout. Last month, we had a conversation about the Blackhawk proposed project, and there was all sorts of discussion about we're building on HOA land, we're doing this, we're going to spend $250,000, we're going to do this and that. I met with the HOA board a week after this meeting last month, and I brought them this packet. And briefly, and we can discuss it more next month, is what that is intended to do is have a new street, 5 feet of grass, and then a 5-foot sidewalk. And all they're asking for is to do a layback curb and fill that grass area with concrete so you can park on it. It's real simple. The HOA is willing to pay for the extra material. They're willing to partner on it, and there's some details in there that we can talk about at another time. There's a lot, and Stephen is in his cage back there. I don't know why you do that to him. It's kind of mean. But Stephen met me after last month's meeting because I said the agenda is always written in code. It's 2 pages long, but he showed me this thing, that little link that y'all send out with 767 pages of information. Whew.
Yeah.
That makes for some fun reading, doesn't it? Well, I went through it 2 or 3 times, but there's a lot in there this month. The flood study was encouraging, although I would encourage you, there's some money being thrown or suggested for storm sewer projects. Well, I don't think that helps flooding very much. We got bigger things to deal with than storm sewers. The bond election stuff, I'm going to leave that up to some more discussions later down the road. But there's a big wish list in there. I'll challenge you, and you know me. Hey, guys, actually, the wish list is $127 million. You want to ask for 50-something, and there's not a whole lot for Harris County in there. Again, not even hey, we want to build a park or do a trail. Maybe 10 square feet of new sidewalk, who knows? But let's treat the city as one instead of like the active transportation plan. We want to spend $7 million on something that I don't even know, other than a bunch of sidewalks, what is it? It's kind of interesting. The consent agenda, what I call the rubber stamp agenda, it keeps growing. It's 26 items this month. That's A through Z, not skipping I or J, and congratulations for not using double A. But there's a lot of stuff on there from AOCA Services, wondering if we're doing away with our building department. I know some great inspectors over there, and I'm wondering why we're going that route. We're spending a lot of money for playground stuff and some other things, hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're just going to rubber stamp and not really talk about. Then finally, the Economic Development Corporation, you're going to basically reappoint some folks, but there's one new opening that I would like to self-nominate myself for, if you will consider me, because you suggested Mr. Brett Banfield, and I know the Development Corp is for downtown, and Mr. Banfield has a vested interest in downtown. I think that would be a huge conflict of interest to put someone in charge of $1 million that really his properties could benefit from. So if you would, consider me for that position later on tonight, and that's all I have to say, and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And I may be back next month.
Roy Glanville.
Good afternoon. My name is Roy Glanville. I live at 2104 Pine Drive. I've lived there for about 30 years now in the Poly Ranch subdivision. I've identified to the city of Friendswood an apparently dangerous situation caused by the city of Friendswood. Murad Kabiri was provided written descriptions of this issue along with pictures and videos of the hazard on May 26, 2026 at 3:41 p.m. 30 minutes later, Murad responded to my information stating that he had referred this to his staff for assessment and resolution. However, nothing yet has been done to resolve the danger. This is the third notice that I've given to the city of Friendswood about this issue. The first was in March. The second was May of 6 days ago, and then tonight to City Council. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, item 6, special recognitions and acknowledgements. Present the City of Friendswood 5-Star Spirit Award for the second quarter of 2026 to Megan Childers, Office Manager for the Parks and Recreation Department.
Well, Mayor and Council, as I say each quarter, this is the most enjoyment I have speaking before you guys, because we get to highlight the accomplishments of an employee that's been nominated either by a resident or by fellow employees on the exceptional work they do. Tonight, Megan Childers has been nominated by both coworkers and a resident. I'm actually surprised it's taken her this long to get a 5-star, because she's been one of the most outgoing and courteous employees that I've ever seen and had the privilege of working with here at the City of Friendswood. So with that, I'd like to ask Megan to come up here so that we can present her with a 5-star. Would you like to introduce your family?
Absolutely. So in the back is my husband there in the blue, and just as much my work family, Parks and Rec in the back. So glory to God. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Meg. All right, moving on, item 7, committee reports. 7A, received the Library Advisory Board's annual report presented by Vice Chair Jo Beth Brizendine.
You have a few slides to look at tonight. I assume you can read the PowerPoint, so I'm not going to go through word by word. But we just want to thank the council for the city's continued support of the library. The board has been active in activities. The Friends of the Library has been active. But most importantly, we have a phenomenal staff that keeps involved with the community. We like to think that we're the heart of the community. And when you look at items of circulation, you look at patrons that come in the door, you know that that everyone in Friendswood acknowledges the power and the friendliness of the Friendswood Public Library. And in particular, I'd like to acknowledge our leadership. Karen Hart did a great job during this transition this past year of keeping the ship going in the right direction and supporting the staff and the programming. And we also are very proud to welcome Melissa Baker as our new director. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo Beth. All right, item 8, our work session topics. 8A, receive a presentation and discuss the City of Friendswood Master Drainage Plan presented by Jason Becker with Half Associates.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to take a opportunity real quick to present or to introduce Jason Becker with Half Associates. Tonight is the culmination of our several months worth of work of our master drainage plan. He will present our findings on that plan tonight.
Thanks, Hill.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity here to present to the council. I spoke in March of last year just as this study was getting kicked off, and so myself and Kyle Outen with Half Associates, the main technical consultant completing the master drainage plan, are here to present kind of a summary of what has happened over the last year and a half. I wanted to first just introduce the study, provide an overview. There's a tremendous need for a comprehensive master drainage plan update for the city of Friendswood. Flooding remains a persistent concern shared by many residents that impacts businesses and homes throughout the entire city. There's a lot better data now that's available since the completion of the previous MDP. This better data allows for newer analysis and updated recommendations that's going to help provide a roadmap for smarter growth, for better city planning for city staff, the engineering department, and other elected officials. New funding opportunities exist now, and we want to make sure that we're setting up the city to take advantage of those new funding opportunities to help fund future drainage improvements throughout the city. And last, safety and resilience are top priorities for the city. And so we want to keep that in mind as we update the master drainage plan and look at ways to address how reducing flood risk can make the city more resilient long-term. There's really two main goals for the study. We wanted to look at reducing flood risk and increasing resilience throughout the city limits. And we did this by looking at where are the areas of highest risk. How do we identify different drainage projects that help to address that risk? And then we also wanted to focus on outlining a plan of attack, an implementation strategy to get these ideas from concept all the way to construction. That's a really important part of the MDP. And so you can see here on the slide, the study outcome, there are really four main deliverables, four main items that the consultant team is going to be providing the city. The first is a list of recommendations, prioritized recommendations that cover small, medium, and large projects throughout the entire city limits. The second is a whole lot of additional flood risk information. Where water ponds, how much it ponds, all this data that's generated from our analysis is going to provide the city with a lot of information that wasn't there before. And that's going to be really important as a planning tool going forward. And three is a roadmap for city planning. So using all this additional information that's been generated, outlining a strategy for both short-term and long-term drainage improvements, flood risk reduction strategies, really making sure that this plan is both accessible and impactful and implementable. Those are really the three things that we strive to do. And then the last is a centralized GIS database. And so one of the benefits of going through this MDP update is we're consolidating all of the existing information on drainage infrastructure, where storm sewer pipes are, where roadside ditches are, putting all that together and combining it with some of the recommendations and some of the information that we have generated as part of the process. All that's going to go together into one central location that the city can access going forward. It's dynamic. We can add to it as this continues to go live into the future, and that will be a resource for the city for years to come. Just a brief overview of the different parts of the study. I won't go into detail here, but there's really five main parts of the MDP, of this update. First was an extensive data collection effort that started way back in the spring of last year. Collected a lot of information from the city, out in the field. We used that information to develop new models, new mathematical representations of how water is flowing over land, in our roadside ditches, in the storm sewer systems, in the main channels throughout the city. And the results of that H&H modeling allowed us to complete a risk assessment. That helped us figure out, okay, these are the areas that have higher risk. What's driving that higher risk? And knowing those specific factors that contribute to flooding help us pinpoint targeted solutions. And so then we moved into an alternative analysis. This alternative analysis looked at those targeted solutions. What can we do in this area? What's going to make the most sense? What's the most cost effective? We complete this entire analysis of a bunch of different alternatives, screening out alternatives that don't make sense, that don't warrant further consideration. And then we end with this project prioritization, looking at different factors, different weights. How do we take these projects that we want to recommend and make them, convert them into chunks? These are the top tier, then second tier, then third tier. Part of our deliverables is that prioritized list of projects. And so that's kind of the end. We tie that implementation plan into the prioritization. So you're not just getting a list of projects, but it's here's a list of projects, here's why these are the projects to pursue, and here's how you can pursue them to take them from idea all the way to reality. There's some additional boxes on the right side of the slide. As part of this, we had 2 public meetings where we engaged with residents, answered questions, collected valuable firsthand feedback about flooding concerns, and got their feedback so that we can incorporate it into our study. We are also rolling out a flood risk web map that will help communicate and share some of the key messages of the master drainage plan update and provide residents a way to get more information about their flood risk and increase flood risk awareness. We've completed a drainage criteria update and benchmarked that across the kind of regional entities and cities. And then we're going to be preparing a report that's going to accompany our website so you can see in all these different sections what we did, why we did it, and really what are the key takeaway messages. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, who's going to talk about problem area identification and how we started this alternative analysis process.
All right, thank you, Jason. That was a great introduction. I'll try to walk through really what we focused on and what helped us drive some of the determination of these projects as we looked at the city as a whole. And so for that risk assessment or flood risk assessment approach, previously we would look for areas of high concentrated ponding, structural damages as really the main indicators of where to focus our initial assessment on providing projects to. Since then, we've now been able to incorporate a storm sewer system, so we've expanded from just focusing on riverine ponding to now localized ponding on those communities that are further away from the main stems, that are still receiving ponding issues, flooding issues that maybe aren't reflecting what was seen on a map. And so we defined the area in a series of, or a large grid, and utilized several metrics to essentially base a score onto each of these hexagons that I'll show you in the next slide. Gives us a better idea of where these high-risk locations are across the city in general. And so on the left-hand side, because there's so much infrastructure in the city of Friendswood, there are areas that tend to pond that may not lead to structural flooding, but are often issues or causes of issues to mobility. And so if we looked on just essentially flooded structures, it would be really what the historical issues would be, where Clear Creek is driving a lot of concerns and a lot of problems. But if you expand from that and try to focus or shift the focus onto these other communities, there's a lot of area of Friendswood that is not shown just at Clear Creek. And we start to see mobility issues arise on the left image where ponding is attributed in the roadways that limit mobility for emergency access or even can kind of isolate communities on heavy rainfall events. And so an aggregate was constructed. This combined both historical flooding, flooded structures, and flooded roadways. It's a little soft on the transparency on the image, but it started to highlight, of course, that high concentration on Clear Creek, but really helps us focus on finding projects that give benefit to the city in general. So we aren't just trying to spend our money on these small areas, but we don't forget about the folks further away at the city limits. So what this helped us do was then place a problem area, which are these colored rings, that then we identified what the cause of flooding was for these areas and kind of classified it into 5 major categories, where you'll see a heavy amount on near the main stems is riverine flooding, or issues of the streams or channels kind of leaving the banks. And then overland flow, where it's sort of a shallow bit of ponding but is unmanaged, is kind of working its way through an area. You'd see that more in the communities that had roadside ditches, where those would tend to fill up and then be unmanaged kind of in the local area. Tailwater driven is sort of where we would kind of combine that with our storm sewer systems, where it was, we had to focus on something to lower that tailwater, so we would increase the effectiveness of our storm sewer system. And then, as I kind of mentioned, hand in hand with that overland flow, where there's areas of maybe undersized roadside ditches. And so with that, it's hard to show them on the entirety of the city limits, but we started identifying projects with those areas and started at roughly 53 projects as our initial assessment. So a large amount. And then, as Jason said, we started to look at feasibility, constraints, both environmental, maybe existing utility constraints, and started phasing or screening those out and worked down to a list of 20 projects that we felt strong that would both be effective in providing benefit to the city, lowering flood risk, and had a high chance of getting implemented. And so I'll just use a brief time to walk through a few that we can zoom into. These will be available to look further at. But we tried to provide a well-rounded amount of well-rounded, I guess, projects based on not just storm sewer, not just channel improvements, but something that kind of gave a broad spectrum of improvement for the area. So we have new pond construction areas, storm sewer, and even looking at utilizing existing ponds and how we can improve those to provide benefit to that area without having to go and necessarily acquire large parcels in areas that we see that available. And then down in the lower Clear Creek area, similar, some of these areas had more prominent roadside ditch systems that we saw benefit to. And then also, just to include, as we went through these concepts, we can see kind of some land work in the imagery. We did look to include ongoing and future projects into this. So the Friendswood Regional Facility being one of them, so that we aren't providing an alternative to something that may get helped or fixed with a project that's coming in the future. We did our best to kind of future-proof this and show existing projects of the city along with these further future recommendations. And then for the sake of time, I'll keep going through these, but looking then at Coward Creek, and then Chigger Creek, and then finally Dickinson Bayou on the south end was one of the areas where we saw most improvements being available for roadside ditches. And so with those projects, it was a lot of projects. I won't go through all of those on kind of their results, but just to pick 3 of them to discuss, we did move all 20 of those through a metrics calculation where we identified 3 main metrics to kind of score or compare against each other. Those being flooded structures and flooded roadways that we've already talked about, so that we could be consistent with, we had a flood risk assessment, where are we now reducing that risk with kind of the same ideas. And then finally, inundated area or that floodplain area, where have we reduced that around the city. And so flooded structures, we determined with looking at the FFE in comparison, or the finished floor elevation in comparison to the water surface elevations from the model, And then for our roadway inundation, we kind of screened out any flooding or ponding rather below a quarter foot, as that kind of wasn't really impeding any sort of mobility aspects or wouldn't, but anything higher is kind of where you get into some of those, some potential issues of then breaking the curb or going above the curb and kind of getting into parcels and yard areas. So we'll start with identifying just a few projects, as I mentioned, that sort of are spread out across the city. One being in our upper Clear Creek Basin, lower Clear Creek, and then in Chigger Creek. So, and each of these projects kind of vary in terms of their scale, where we focus on the upper Clear and Chigger Creek as kind of localized improvements, and we see some of the, around half a mile or so of reduced roadways because we're focused on those neighborhood areas. And then on those areas, kind of on the north banks of Clear Creek, we see some of those larger improvements that look to expand improvement to an area that was heavily kind of affected by Harvey and some of those other storm events. And then we see, again, the same three comparisons for inundated area, where for the lower Clear Creek, more large solution, but more costly. We see quite a significant reduction in ponded acres, so a shrinkage of that floodplain area, but still benefit shown across each of the other alternatives that we wanted to present. And then in structures, because some of these areas are more, or some of the flooded structures are likely more around that Clear Creek main stem, and are kind of tied to those larger storm events, the 100-year, 500-year, 50-year. We don't see as many improvements, as there aren't as many structures to improve in those earlier storm events. So those first two alternatives kind of show they start taking or removing structures from the floodplain, removing flooded structures in those stronger, less frequent events, whereas over there in the Clear Creek lower project, we start removing structures earlier on in some of those more frequent events. But again, it's not always the flooded structure metric that is to be considered. Mobility is still an issue when it comes to ponding in order to get emergency personnel distributed and effectively helping others. And so then, taking those projects, we looked at a cost estimate for each of them and tried to identify several projects between that kind of were along a large scale. We had some less costly projects. Some of the larger, more regional ones are then going to be those higher costs. But something we wanted to provide was a spectrum or a range of cost or a range of projects so that we could focus on those that had an easier chance or a quicker implementation cycle, and then identify funding sources to still be able to assess some of those larger, more regional facilities. We utilized most recent TxDOT and Harris County flood control bid tabs, a standard 30% contingency along with a 15% assessment onto the construction costs, as well as including any right-of-way acquisition needs and mitigation costs for each of the projects. And so there's a large range of numbers here, but it kind of also breaks down sort of which or where we identified projects, with the most being up there in the upper Clear Creek watershed, and Clear Creek lower, and then roughly 2 projects that we have taken through to prioritization in Coward Creek, and then 4 in Chigger Creek. And so as Jason said, it's gone now from alternative analysis to prioritization and trying to assess which of these projects out of the ones that were selected into, that we found benefits to move on into modeling, how can we arrange those to best provide a roadmap to the city? And so we, again, wanted to utilize our metrics and flood risk that we've been already using in our evaluations and provide a weighted factor to structure reductions, roadway reductions, project efficiency is sort of like a benefit and cost ratio calculation. And then two of the final ones are ones that we wanted to include that started to place weighting on, ease of funding, mitigation needs, community impact. Is there going to be a project that will take up an entire road for X amount of months for construction? It's likely not to get scored as high, as it provides quite a disruption to the community. And then finally, public input. I know we have a lot of folks here with great ideas and things to say about their community. And so that is something we want also represented in our prioritization and scoring. And so it's still, at this time, a work in progress for the public input and project support scale, but we have gone through and started to configure our prioritization structure to assign a score to each project. That doesn't necessarily mean that where it falls on this scale is not important. These are still the 15 projects from 50 that we started with. We felt these all provided benefit in some degree to the city, but they just had to be put in a prioritization amongst each other. But still the 15 to 20 that we brought along to fully kind of evaluate in our modeling. And this was just a slide to show kind of back if there's been a lot of images, a lot of shapes and colors to sort of highlight several of where those projects and that prioritization structure has landed. And it's done what we've wanted to do. It's provided projects to kind of focus on that aren't just all in one watershed or aren't just all in one neighborhood area. It's starting to show that broad amount of improvement that we want to provide the city. And so I'll pass it back to Jason kind of to close us out on our presentation.
Thanks, Kyle. So, a few key takeaways from this master drainage plan update. First, as I mentioned, this opportunity allowed the city to look at, using newer data and understanding both riverine and urban flood risk. So not just looking at what's happening along these big channels, but really what's happening at a more local level inside neighborhoods as you move further away from Clear Creek and some of Clear Creek's major tributaries. That was a really important goal of this study because we wanted to get a comprehensive understanding of flood risk so that we can propose solutions that are really going to tackle the issues at hand and improve the quality of life for residents throughout the city. The MDP generated a lot of useful data, and so that is going to be provided and serve as kind of an ongoing database. Here's what the city has right now. Here's an understanding of what the risk is now. Kyle talked about some of those different hexagon, figures that we were looking at. All that data is going to be provided so that the city staff and other elected officials, decision makers, have access to that, understand what that data is telling us, and can use it for planning purposes going forward. We're going to talk about the proposed projects, the recommendations. All that is going to be digital information that is going to be provided as part of this project. And so Kyle showed the prioritized list of projects. I mean, that is a really great starting point. It's 15 projects out of 50 that really represent the best projects to look at for a variety of reasons, tackling a variety of different flooding issues. It's important to remember that these projects are not going to get rid of all the flood risk. Just like there are areas, just because you're not in one of these problem areas doesn't mean you don't have any flood risk. But we are trying to figure out where those concentrated areas are so that every dollar that's invested gives the biggest return on investment. And that's the goal with prioritizing these projects and really laying out an implementation strategy. Like I said earlier, this is not just about here's a list of projects. It's about what is the strategy. It is about how do we reduce risk in the short term and the long term. How do we get projects started, projects that are funded through partnership opportunities. How do we address both structural flooding in homes as well as roads flooding? That's really going to help the community to continue to develop and have sustainable growth. And last, just wanted to highlight, there's a snippet on the very bottom of the slide. This is the project website for the master drainage plan update. It's a great website. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but it really provides a new engaging way for people to understand really the vision for this study, why we're doing it, what are some of the key takeaways of the study. Again, it's meant to be dynamic. It can be updated as we go forward, as these concepts and alternatives move into engineering and design and construction. And so it really is the foundation for providing a way for people to understand their risk and for the city to make informed decisions on how to reduce risk and increase resilience going forward. So thank you very much. We have some time for questions.
Thanks, Jason. Kyle, we really appreciate it. Right after you, we're going to talk about potential bonds, and they'll probably talk to us about maybe some bonds for drainage projects. So, Rod, did you have anything to add?
No, just open it up for questions from council and then see if we can answer them as well as talk about the next steps.
Great. Well, questions, gentlemen?
So, you know I want to go deep dive on this and look at all the data and get as
Sure.
deep as we can. So would there be like a separate mini workshop where we can sit down with HAF and work through it with staff? Or how do you propose to go through that with us?
It is up to city council. Obviously, if we're talking about a November bond election, you would have to take into consideration logistics associated therein. We can provide all of council a link to the backup material. It's way too large, obviously, to email it to you. We are working on that drainage story map that we discussed last month, and we're probably about 85% complete, in which case we're going to tie these backup materials to each of those projects so you can have the firsthand data. But it's completely up to you on how y'all want to digest it. So if you would like a separate workshop with HAF present, we can talk about that. Is there a specific project, or what is it in particular you're looking for?
No, because I mean, it's, because as I look through the materials and there are so many different components to it that you really have to kind of understand and what the true, I guess, value of each of those projects is going to be. I understand they put their weighting to them, and I appreciate that because that helps us sort it much more efficiently. So if we've got these down to 15-ish projects, then I'd like to go deep dive on each one of those and say, hey, you know, what's this going to accomplish? Why are we going to do it? What are the dollars associated with it?
So I alluded to some of this last month when we were having the drainage update, that of the homes that flooded in Harvey, 95% of them were built before the city had any tangible drainage criteria. So when we're looking at these projects, the storm sewer improvements in particular are intended to address that issue in particular. So that's probably where a lot of the weight came from, not because of any influence I had, but because of the data that they found when they analyzed the projects.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep, totally understand that.
Have you been on the website yet to dig down and see what you find there?
No,
No,
I can do that as well.
yeah. But yeah, we can schedule it for as many or few as y'all that want.
Don't have to
Yeah.
drag everybody else into my
Sure.
need for information.
Yes, sir.
I would share that need for information, and so I would support that workshop.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. It's a little more basic, I guess. There was an old study that was done, I don't know, 22, and it was to do with the Friendswood Regional Storm Detention Basin. There was an item, $32.4 million budget, that in a 100-year storm event took 67 homes out of the flood. There are numerous examples of your metrics that you use and examples. There was one that was 0.05 miles of inundated road would be prevented, which is 262 feet. Inundated road, what I read was 3 inches or more of water. and there was a cost associated with that of $4 million. I guess for myself and for the general public, can you explain how that cost benefit comes into play with this? And then I got one other question, if you can help answer.
Sure. So, I mean, the benefits and cost are looked at separately initially, and then you bring them together to understand kind of that project efficiency. And so, like I said before, this is the top 15-ish projects out of 50, and so there's a whole range of projects. Some of these projects are much more on the lower cost side, and there are some projects that are significant in their cost. Some of these are generating more benefit, and it may not be huge numbers in terms of we're removing 50 miles, or 10 miles of inundated roadway. But we're looking at some of the constraints of these projects and really trying to figure out, we want to have a range of projects. Some of these are more local and focused projects, focused on how do we look at this, smaller area, what benefit can be produced there. Some of these are bigger.
I understand that part, but again, the direct cost benefit analysis, is that something that in a deep dive workshop
Yes.
we could
So-
get more in detail about and help those of us that don't put the numbers together?
Yes, I mean, we can certainly go through each one and talk about the benefits and the costs.
And then one other question, just in looking at all this, obviously, you're doing this for the city of Friendswood, and the work is all combined and focused on inside the city limits, as you said. But what consideration was given in looking at the big picture, long-range flood mitigation work that's being done and studies by our partners outside the city of Friendswood? And how much did that information play, if any, in y'all's consideration of this plan?
So one of the things that we wanted to do is make sure we account for water that's entering the city from outside the city limits. So we did account for water that's coming in from Pearland, some of the water that's coming in from, the upper Clear Creek beyond the city limits. So we accounted for all of that water, because that's important to truly understand what's happening within the city limits. Our proposed projects are all just within the city limits, and so that was our focus. We accounted for all of that outside drainage coming into the city. We are, looking at implementation strategies that look at other regional partners, for example. A lot of those are focused on major Clear Creek projects, and so we wanted to include some projects that could be prime candidates for partnerships, but also projects that the city could implement on its own that are looking at other areas within the city, other areas of risk.
And because of the rules of conveyance, and we can't just convey it to League City, for example, was conveyance possibilities considered in any of this planning?
Yes, I mean, we looked at a range of different options in terms of different types of improvements, so opening up channels, improving storm sewers. If you're talking about impacts, we looked at that. We obviously don't want to move problems to another area.
We want to convey it to the creeks, which is what the city does, and then
Yes.
it's up to other jurisdictions to convey it from there. But I guess my question is, was there any collaboration with any outside downstream?
No, we wanted to make sure that within the city of Friendswood, there's no impacts that would be beyond the city limits.
To add on to that briefly, one of the benefits of the database that's been created is we can now use this as a plug and play when we're partnering with other agencies as to what it would do if we were to find a project that is mutually beneficial. So I've talked about it since 2019. The city of Friendswood cannot use drainage bond dollars outside of our city limits. But we can partner with other jurisdictions, much like we've done with the Drainage District, much like we've done with the Flood Control District and with League City, on some of those regional efforts to improve drainage. Going back to your earlier question, Councilmember Hale, and we can discuss this more in the whiteboard approach, unfortunately, none of the projects work in a linear fashion. So some projects will have a far greater benefit for less dollars spent than others. But if I had my druthers, I wish there was the cheapest project we can do and solve drainage for all time, and that unfortunately doesn't exist, but definitely working
I
towards.
agree, it doesn't exist, but I think the cost versus benefit has definitely got to be taken into consideration.
Of course, because that's the only way we're ever going to qualify for federal dollars. We have to at least have a cost-benefit ratio of 1 or better.
Speaking of dollars, you said there are some new funding mechanisms. You talked about that earlier in your presentation.
Yes.
Funding opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, we part of, to kind of, add on to what he said, I mean, for example, the regional, flood planning efforts that are going on right now, making sure that these projects are packaged up and the right information is there is a big part of what we're doing. So that way, when you're looking at this funding opportunity is present, we don't have to go figure out what the numbers are. Is this going to be a good candidate or not? We've already had that initial kind of investigative work done. We're partnering with some of our internal funding strategy folks to figure out these are the funding programs that are going to be potentially the best fit. The regional flood planning is one example. We want to make sure that we're getting the projects on our recommendation list onto the list, so it's eligible for the flood infrastructure fund in future years. That's all starting kind of what could be ongoing partnership discussions about how to leverage not just the dollars from the city, but leveraging dollars from other agencies, funding partners. I mean, that's how you're going to accomplish some of the bigger projects that have bigger benefits, but they obviously have bigger dollars associated with them as well.
Thank you.
Really briefly, most of my questions are going to be in the bond makeup of it. I really enjoyed your slides, your presentation. The volume of the wastewater and storm sewer improvements was more voluminous than I had anticipated. I looked at it and I even talked to Mo, and he explained to me, some of these older subdivisions and everything. But that's really our core principle. That's our critical care infrastructure that, to me, is high priority because, as Randy mentioned, for the most part, our jobs, especially with open ditching, is conveying it to their stations and places and letting it get into the tributaries in the main creek and let other jurisdictions take care of that. We kind of ventured a little away from that when we went into the after Harvey bonds and everything, but I'm going to be discussing what I think about that stormwater and wastewater infrastructure and how important that is in the bond section and how that's really, to me, the city of Friendswood has open ditches that we maintain, and the conveyance, the efficacy of those ditches to convey water over time diminishes because of all kinds of reasons, whether it's mowing, you get build up. You can drive by any of the open ditches that we take care of, and you can see the ones that need it and the ones that have been recently done. And that is our job. We are to get that to the respective stations and places and get it out into where it goes. So I enjoyed reading the report, and I'll have some other questions in the bond part of it too, because I see this as two completely separate, not all in the general fund at all, but more importantly, in the Public Works Department and funding through the Public Works Department where we've raised fees for 2 years in a row for sure. And so some of this can be done, I think, through capital management, and that's kind of where I'm going to be discussing that in the bond part.
I think the big takeaway is that we've been talking about flooding and drainage for a long time in Friendswood, and a lot of the big projects we've tackled. With our partners, we've gone out with a lot of money and gotten $121 million worth of conveyance projects done. And now, the big hitters that are left are in the neighborhoods. And when you talk about storm sewers and ditches, that's how we get that water out of there. So some of those things we have undersized, storm sewers in the city, and they need to be redesigned and fixed so that we can get more water out of there. We don't want choke flow inside those storm sewers. So thank you. This is great. This is awesome. Appreciate all the work. All right, moving on. 8B, receive a presentation to discuss the 2026 Bond Election Ad Hoc Committee final report presented by 2026 Election Bond Ad Hoc Committee Chair Robin Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, so we're going to kind of go over the charge of the committee and some of our city demographics and our recommendations from the committee and how we want them packaged up together for the recommendations. We want to first, we had multiple resources that we utilized, city staff. We had many staff members from all the different departments come out and help us. We used the capital plans, financial information, historical and projected. We actually went on tours, and then on some of the hotter topics, we did some internal surveys that discussions just weren't doing it justice, so we did some surveys out to our committee as well. We had 35 citizens across the city, different backgrounds, education, interests. We tried to represent every group that we were representing, some that are on existing committees as well. And basically, anybody that applied to be on this committee was accepted. So anybody that wanted to participate did. We appreciate City Council giving us this charge, and we appreciate city staff. Murad and Stephen and Letty and Katina were a great help to us throughout the process. So we broke up our advisory group into 5 smaller groups. We did facilities, streets, parks and recreation, and drainage, and then finally we did finance. The committee and subcommittees met 12 times. We also had a leadership team. The leadership team was myself over finance, Maddie Short over city facilities, Tom Hinckley over drainage, Natasha McAdoo over parks, and Lee Coggins over streets and drainage. And the leadership team also met after every whole committee just to make sure that we were all staying on the same page and making sure what our next steps were. The part I want you to grab from here is we did review over $182 million worth of proposed projects. So our city demographics, we have grown. I think 10,000 people on the left there was back in 1982, and now we are sitting near 43,000 people. You can see our population growth. On average, we've grown about 2% since 1996, so we are still growing. Our property values have also grown. We have had a 6.9% average, and the national average is 3.2%. So we are growing larger than the national average. When we started looking at these $182 million worth of projects, we put together a rationale. Not going to read it to you. I know you guys read the packet, but we went through every one of these and said, does this project fit? Is it part of what we want for our citizens? We then broke it down just a little bit further, and then also each committee, and you'll see those, broke it down specific to theirs, because there was parks rationale and drainage rationale that we did. So we rationalized this quite a bit. Then we also took it down to, does it add quality of life? Is it efficient? Is it critical? And is it a substantive change? So a third level of rationale and classification for that. So the first thing we're going to hit on is drainage. I know you guys just heard the master drainage plan. Just so you know, before we go into this, the master drainage committee was meeting at the same time that we were meeting. So we did not have benefit of their final numbers. So we were working on some other things. So you will see at the end of the presentation that that is additional rationale or additional recommendation, and it's only because it did not go before the whole committee. So it's not because it's not needed, but the committee did not see that presentation. And if they're here in the room, which I know a lot of them are, that was the first time. Did I hit?
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
Yes.
So back in 2019, when we did a bond, again, it was right after Harvey, we did focus on the creeks and the tributaries, and now the drainage really wanted to focus on the neighborhoods. It's where we needed to go and make sure that we're doing that next step. So with drainage, there is 3 areas of storm sewer, Falcon Ridge and Brill's storm sewer improvements, Maplewood and Westwood storm sewer, Autumn Creek neighborhoods, Sun Meadow, the ponds there, Autumn Creek neighborhood ponds, and the channel for Chicker Creek dig out at Oak Drive. They are recommending $20 million for drainage. Again, the master drainage plan, some of those things you'll see at the end because these we're working on before that study was completed.
You're saying there might be some realignment of what you're,
So those projects that are noted on the previous slide were a part of the master drainage plan because they were working concurrent with that process. So engineering was plugging numbers in as we went. The additional considerations are going to come from now that we have the completed report, there are some larger projects that should be considered. I mean, if we're going to go out for a bond election, I don't want to steal Robin's thunder. The committee's going to make a recommendation, and then I'm going to add some words to their recommendation, and then ultimately it's going to be city council's choice as to if we have a bond election, and if we do, what's all included on that.
Now, tonight is just discussion of that. And
Correct.
We're
No
not,
vote.
we're not going to decide tonight because there's a lot of people that want to do a lot more research on that.
Correct. At the end, I do have a timeline of when things need to be decided. So yes, tonight is a presentation, and you will have time to workshop it if needed and discuss it so that you can come back at a later time. But we do have a timeline out there.
We would like some direction, though, from y'all tonight. Good, if y'all say, hey, y'all are way off base, we don't want any of this, then we need to know that.
Okay, next was streets. And so this is Blackhawk that I'm looking at. I am directionally challenged, so if I have to refer to my notes as to what streets these are. So what we wanted to do here, some of the rationale, we wanted to have vehicle and pedestrian safety. They wanted to avoid vehicle damage on private streets and for emergency vehicles. Some of the roads, they want to prevent the worsening of the road conditions. They want to improve drivability and demonstrate that the quality of the streets matter. So that's the additional rationale there for streets. The streets recommendation is sidewalks citywide, Bay Area Boulevard from FM 528 to the wastewater treatment plant, Stadium Lane and Murphy Lane, and we'll go through each one of those. So the sidewalks citywide, we want to put in $1 million there. Some of the sidewalks specifically would be like at Sunset and 2351 and 518 adjacent over to Analia. And the recommendation is staff would make a prioritization of those sidewalks, but we would put $1 million in for those sidewalks to fill some of those existing gaps. Bay Area Boulevard, 528 to the wastewater treatment plant. That road needs to be fully reconstructed to restore safe and durable roadway surface. If you go down there, it's like you're on a little roller coaster. I do encourage you to drive that. There are a lot of trees there. The root barrier and tree orientation will be explored on Bay Area for the reconstruction project to hopefully save some of those live oaks. And then there's a note here that Mud 55 is going to be doing the storm sewer underneath Bay Area as well.
Not storm sewer, but their force main and outflow. So you may recall that there are 4 participants in the wastewater treatment plant, City of Friendswood, Harris County Mud 55, Bay Area, City of Houston, and Baybrook Mud number 1. And the long stretch of that along Bay Area is about to be torn up by Mud 55 as they do their work. To add to this project, one of the rationale behind the need to redo Bay Area is that within the last year, we've had 4 emergency repairs. In some sections, the roadway had deviated due to subsurface conditions by close to 9 inches, which is a dangerous hazard. The roadway's been in place for nearly 30 years, obviously, but with those growth in trees, they've exacerbated the issue. So though the roadway may seem passable right now, we know that it's imminent, that there's going to be future emergency repairs, and it's time that we go all the way and address it.
Now, is there chances for partners with this right here? Because I know like Adrian Garcia helped us with Black Hawk, and here's Bay Area in Harris County. It is in Harris County.
So that, yes, it is in Harris County, and there's always a chance that he will partner with
I
us.
was just wondering if we could take that information that this committee has put together and say, look, this is some funding requirements that we have right now, and see if we can't get HGAC to help or whatever. I know putting it all on a bond is not, there's not a lot of appetite in Friendswood for bonds, and so I'm just wondering if we could take some of this information and try to get it moving now to help with some of the costs, because we always do well partnering with everybody. Every project we ever do, we end up getting partners.
And isn't this maintenance, not a new road?
This is maintenance, and it's not a new road.
So our 3/8 sales tax could be applied here.
It can, and obviously, we've demonstrated that with Blackhawk, both use of the previously issued bonds, as well as the 3/8 cents, as well as the partnership with Commissioner Garcia's office. The only thing I would caution is that we collect roughly $2.7 million a year in that street maintenance sales tax. So it would just be at least a year and a quarter for this project alone, assuming we get a partnership. So we won't be able to do any other projects in that same time period, and there are other roadways that we have. But that is, that's a fair
I'm really
suggestion.
glad Sally mentioned that, because we created a capital maintenance fund, and not tonight, I'm not going to ask you, how much is in the capital maintenance fund? Just
1.2, no, sorry.
A lot of this seems
Yeah.
like maintenance. And maybe if Katina could just shoot us an email and say, this is what's currently in our capital maintenance fund, we'll have an idea of what we're looking at, and then how much money we get from the 3/8 cents, okay?
And we can definitely do that, yes.
Well, because in addition to not going out for a bond and paying interest on the bond.
Yes, ma'am.
That money can be sitting in an account accruing interest. So to me, it's a win-win to try to use those maintenance dollars. And I understand not exhausting our fund. I totally get that. Need to have an emergency amount there. But I just kind of hate sticking it on a bond and then paying interest on the bond when we could actually collect interest as we save the money to accomplish the project.
Yes, ma'am.
Rod, I don't know that I understood you when you were talking about MUD 155 and City of Houston on the force main. Are they embarking on that improvement now, and that's why you're trying to tie the speed with which we need to do this so we're not disrupting the life, or?
No, so I was mentioning the four partners just so that council, and I realize some of you haven't been on council for a lengthy period of time, so you may not know that we have four partners in that regional wastewater treatment plant. The only entity outside of Friendswood that's looking at that roadway right now is Harris County MUD 55. So they're about to install a new force main, and in doing so, there's not a lot of room within the right-of-way, so they're looking at the medians. So some of the roadway's about to be torn up yet again, and for any of our Autumn Creek residents out here, they've had quite the frustration in the last 3 years on the emergency repairs now, this future project that's going on. But it is not dictating the timeline.
It's not trying to jointly do the repairs simultaneously, so we just reduce this disruption.
No, sir. It will take us probably 16, 18 months to just do the design work for the full-scale reconstruction of a roadway like this.
Sorry I interrupted you, Robin.
You're totally fine. I encourage the questions. These are questions that we had throughout our meeting. So I will tell you, one of the questions I asked when we had several staff members there, if you could only pick one project, what would it be? This was the project that I was told was the most important out of all the projects that were listed. So I don't know what weight that gives you. The next street is Stadium. We had somebody take some aerial photos for us, and so you can see the condition of Stadium Lane, and that needs to be resurfaced there. Murphy Lane is another one. You can see just the hills and valleys on Murphy Lane there, and that is at $1.5 million.
Can you go back to Murphy real quick?
Yep.
Just drive it.
That is the absolute worst street. I just want to note, I no longer live on Murphy and haven't for a few years now, so.
Any citizen that doesn't think that road needs to be repaired,
Drive
just
it.
drive it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the craziest road I've ever driven on.
Don't have coffee in your hand.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm in my 4Runner. It feels worse than off-road.
I questioned who took this picture because it made it actually look half decent.
that-
and it's not.
All right, so streets and transportation, we are asking for $11 million in total on streets. All right, parks. So first of all, and I think this is actually the same quote from 2019, let's fix what we've got. We want to ensure the parks that we have, we are utilizing those to the best of our ability. So with Parks and Recreation, we are looking at Lake Friendswood, the bulkhead and trail repair, sports complex upgrades, Stevenson Park Aquatics Facility infrastructure, expansion and related systems, and Stevenson Park parking expansion. So first, we have the bulkhead and trail repair at $2.4 million. So if you go out there, you can see where the bulkhead, we need to reduce the erosion there. And then if you walk the trail, it is currently a wooden trail, and they are repairing that at all costs. And so making that a more concrete path, and so let's do it one time and a final time there.
So when we originally built that project, we had to do a boardwalk because of the development just not even the development, the property just outside of Friendswood and League City was rather, held water quite a bit. With the development taking place, they relocated those standing water to their own ponds, and we no longer have to do an elevated boardwalk. We can do a concrete path, which is far more durable and easier to maintain moving forward.
The next thing is Renwick Park infrastructure and upgrades, $1.5 million. We need the new restroom building, renovate the meeting room and concession stands, and provide some safety improvements for 5 of the press box and field seating. This also, I will note that this goes with the Parks Master Plan, goal number 6. So as we said, the rationale, they are tying it back to our master plans that you guys have all been a part of and approved there.
I think those are the original restrooms, right? They were built in like the 70s. Yeah, they haven't changed.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm getting a yes.
I thought so.
Okay, LED sports lighting at Renwick and Centennial. So retrofitting all the existing fields to LED, and it will provide consistent and safe lighting that reduces energy cost and light pollution. Currently, we have to have a staff member that goes out there and turns them on, waits a little bit, and then they come on with LED. They'll be able to do it from wherever, and it's also energy savings out there.
Is this just changing out the structures at the top of the mast arms?
Both the structures themselves and the lighting at top, if I'm not mistaken, James? Yes, both the pole and the...
Oh, so the full pole? Wow.
Yes.
It's a good price then,
Yes.
having just priced those out.
All right, Centennial Park renovations, $1.1 million, new soil and regrade all the existing fields. If you have kids out there that are on some of those fields, I don't have any more out there, but I've been told that it is an ankle sprain waiting to happen. And then installation of a new playground and new shade structure and replace the current structure. Again, this goes with the master parks plan, goal number 6 and number 7. So this is not an additional $4.2 million. Those 3 slides previous are a total. This is one of the ways that we want it packaged is the sports complex upgrades, which is $4.2 million. Again, it's all 3 of those together. The next thing that we have is the renovation, expand the 25-meter pool to 10 lanes and add 1 foot of depth onto the pool. The pool, I believe, was originally installed in 1986?
76.
76?
That says
86.
86.
86.
86, my apologies.
1986.
But I think it's been completely redone
It's
at
been
least 3
redone
times.
multiple times, and it's time to do anew.
Been redone and redone and redone and redone. Yeah.
When we say completely redone, it's been replastered. We haven't removed the gunite and...
Yes, they are wanting to re-gunite and redo. It's been replastered. It's had Band-Aids put on it, and so it's time to do anew. And that is $3.8 million. This is some of the equipment. They wanted you to see some of the age of the equipment and upgrading that equipment to bring it up to some of the standards there.
Can you stop there? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is to repair the pool once again?
No, this would be to
Redo.
redo the pool from ground up, but due to cost, that 3.8 would only get us 2 additional lanes and 1 foot deeper. So we would be ripping out what's there and putting in a new pool.
So we are going to rip out what's there.
We're going to rip out what's there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is, instead of doing another Band-Aid, it's time to do a new.
All new
I'm not going to
pumps.
pour good money after bad.
All new pumps, all new everything. Yeah. The question's going to come in later in this presentation. If you're already out there digging, do you consider a 50-meter pool? Because that's the request of the current swim teams that are utilizing it. I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just telling you that's what's,
That's later, that's like page 87.
I keep stealing your thunder, sorry.
Even the last page of the book, Murat.
Yes. It was in the
Kidding,
backup
it's not
material, though, I'll have you
87.
know, so.
It's only 70. All right, Stevenson Park parking expansion. Again, goes with the master plan goal number 5, increase the parking capability, redesign the expansion, improve the grading and eliminate the large ditches between Stevenson Park and City Hall, and install a rubberized safety service for the central playground. I thought you were reaching for your microphone, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, and that is $3.2 million there. So Parks and Recreation, right now we are asking for $13.6 million. Any questions before we move on? Okay. All right, facilities.
Well, yeah, I do have one, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So was the additional parking at Old City Park discussed? Because we only built half of that. I forgot how many years ago that was.
Correct. That was about 2016, 2017 timeframe. Actually, it was later than that. It was 2018, 2019. I believe it was discussed in the smaller subcommittee, potentially adding the parking, but it didn't make the top of the list as far, but not to say council can't add that to the list.
Because there's also the dirt parking lot on Shadwell as you're going back to Old City Park that I thought we were going to try to finish that out at some point in time.
Correct.
But y'all didn't talk, well, I guess it never made out of your subcommittee is what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope. I welcome it. Facilities. So the Facilities Committee, besides the whole group touring all the facilities, I think the Facilities Committee went back to actually see and put their hands on things firsthand. They prioritized all the facilities based upon the city's capital improvement plan. And they wanted to make sure that they were spanning over public safety, fire, existing buildings, and parks. So our recommendations that we're going to go through are a fuel station at Blackhawk, a fuel station at the Public Safety Building, the Public Safety parking lot expansion, Fire Station 4 expansion, and City Hall renovations. So let's start with, this is just a pretty picture of a fuel station because we didn't have anything to take a picture of. But this would be at Blackhawk where our Public Works is, and this would be on the Harris County side. If you remember during Harvey, we were kind of split in half. And so you'll see with the next slide, we want to put a fuel station not only on Harris County side, but Galveston County side so that we are covered at both, one at Public Works and one at PD. So the other fuel station is also $250,000. The Public Safety Building parking lot expansion, if you see that red, kind of looks like a football field to me, but the red is where they would expand that parking lot, just to give you a frame of reference of where that would go. Fire Station 4. This fire station was built so that we could do the expansion. This would be for a third apparatus bay, and so that we could have dorm rooms if and when our fire station ever moves into a full-time city department. And so you can see the area in red there in which that is slotted for. And that was designed at the point that.
So the architectural plans weren't completed, obviously, in 2006, 2007, when the building was built, and it was opened in 2008. But the building was designed in such a manner to expand in that direction. So we had already accounted for it from a detention standpoint. We already had accounted for it from a structural standpoint.
City Hall renovations, $700,000. You can see the old up in the top left, and then the new glorious council chambers. So We want to do renovations to the lobby, to multiple department suites, and to the existing restroom facility. So when you have guests go in, you actually want your restroom facilities to be more palatable than they are. So, all right, so facilities, again, we were across multiple fractures of the city. So we have the two fuel stations, public safety, parking lot expansion, fire station expansion, and city hall for a total of just under $6 million. Okay, now my committee. We got to crunch the numbers. So our finance committee provided the initial primary rationale and secondary rationale. We reviewed the financial impact to the citizens, funding sources that we have, current bonds that we have when they mature, activity fees, and just the tax structure. So we we dove deep with Katina and her team and looked at some things. So our funding sources that we have is we give a 20% homestead exemption, which currently is the maximum allowed by the state. Where we get our funding is property taxes, current bonds, sales and use tax, activity fees, and then also grants. So as you can tell, this is the last 10 years. And if you look from 2015 to 2026, our tax rate to our citizens has actually gone down 7.7 cents since 2015. Okay? If we look at, and Katina, this is where I may need you to jump in here. Where's Katina?
She's here. She's
There
coming
she
around.
is. She's in the back.
Yeah, come up here with this on, just staying right here next to me. So this is our current debt service that we're at 0.1144. And then we are in 5 years retiring about $9.5 million worth of debt.
Actually, over the next, between now and 2031, we will retire 49 million in debt. Those are the actual bond issuances.
Okay.
Or the amounts that we actually issue, but.
So in the next 6 years, we are going to be retiring close to $50 million worth of. This one, so this is done by our financial advisors. And so what the first box that has the yellow on it, it tells us that we can have the debt capacity of $40 million without increasing our tax rate. If we go for 1 cent, we have a $54 million capacity. If we go for 2 cents, we have 56. So you can kind of see the slide there. But without raising the tax rate, the debt capacity that we have is $40 million.
So a penny is about 13 million?
Yes.
14?
Yeah, 13, 14.
Could you go back one slide and just a point of clarification? If we did nothing, in 2030 and 2031, we would retire about $50 million and save $17 million. What I'm saying is that funding of $8,648,000 and the funding of $8,779 will go away.
Yes, these, to the far right.
To the
on
far
this-
right.
To the far right on this slide are our annual debt service payments. So as we're retiring.
Yeah, as we retire that, so that's going away. So
Yes.
that's almost $16 million we're not going to have to pay anybody.
Yes.
Well, more than almost $17 million we're not. Okay, thank you.
Any questions on this one? Okay. All right. So the bond packaging, we are recommending $50.9 million. We are recommending to go out in November. We did look at that, and we are looking at 1 cent that we would like to ask council to go out for. So 1 cent, the average home price of an existing home, the average is $500,000, $514,000. The average new home price, if you built a home in Friendswood today, it's about $750,000. So if you have the average existing home, it would be a $41.19 increase on the tax bill. And these are all estimated, and nothing is determined until the bonds are sold. So I can't express estimated higher.
One thing I'll add to this, all of the projections are estimates. So if I had my druthers, we would have everything designed, bid, and bid before we actually told the voters how much it would cost. Unfortunately, at 50 million, you're talking about $7.5 to $10 million worth of design work. And we can't guarantee that the projects will move forward if the voters don't support it. So there's going to be some level of estimating involved. Now, we based estimates based on architectural and engineers that do work with us. We based it on bid tabs and other similar activities, much like the master drainage plan discussed earlier. But these are estimates. So even though we're talking $50 million worth of projects, if the voters say yes, we will only issue $50.9 million worth of projects, but I can't guarantee you the magnitude of how far that 50.9 will go, depending on how the economy fares, depending on issues that we haven't identified until you do the engineering and architectural plans, if that makes sense.
So, and I have a slide to point to that in just a second, so bear with me on that before questions. So on our packaging recommendations, we do want multiple proposition. We want the voters to have a choice. We don't want it to be all packaged in one. We would like it packaged according to the project types. And it is designed to meet existing and hopefully all of our, not all of our, but our future needs of the city. And it is packaged to spread out over multiple areas, and it's not concentrated in any one geographic area in the city. We tried to make sure that we are covering the city as a whole. So the recommendation is in the 4 categories that we have: facilities, drainage, parks, and transportation. That is the $50.9 million, and its estimated tax increase would be 1 cent. I will say, as a personal, when I stood up here 6 years ago and did this, we proposed and passed a 5 cent estimated. And if you look back on those slides, we actually had a decrease in the tax rate at that time. So I say kudos back to council and staff for handling our finances in a very efficient manner. So even though this is an estimate, this is worst case scenario that this will increase it. Again, these are all estimates. So this is what we talked about earlier, the estimated to the homeowner, average home price. You can extrapolate that out to what your home price is. $500,000 will be about a $41.19 increase. These are all of the projects that we have listed out, and I wanted you to see each project if we did them individually or took one off. You're good. Or took one off, you can see the fraction of the penny that it will be. I'll let you sit with that one for just a second. Okay? All right, so what we did do, and Murad alluded to this, and so we wanted to put some inflationary costs on this, because even if we went out for a bond and even if all of them passed, we could not start all of them the next day. So there is going to be an inflation cost on there. So last time in 2019, I think we did a 5% inflation only on the drainage stuff. And we're being told now that 5% is just not enough to base that on. So we wanted to give you numbers based on a 5%, 10%, and 20% inflation. And we would definitely encourage you to look at, if you're going to put the bonds up, to do them with an inflation factor so that we don't get halfway through a project in 3 years and we don't have enough because of the inflation factor. So now I've come to some additional options. I promise I am almost done. So there are some things that the committee was not solidly committed on, and we could not come to a consensus. It does not mean that it wasn't a need. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a want, but we did not have full 100% agreement on these. On one of them, we actually sent a survey out, besides the discussion that we had, a survey out to our committee to kind of get, there was a lot of nuances, so we wanted to get that input. And the feedback still came back split, and I'll talk through some of those. So some of the additional options that we have is the recreation center, a 50-meter pool that Murad alluded to, If we are redoing the Stevenson Park, an aquatic play unit, and then the drainage that you guys heard about a half hour ago. I could not put it into the general presentation because the committee did not see that. It came as we were doing our report. So that is why is one of the additional options. So the Parks and Recreation Facility, it's not just a senior citizen center. It would be for some meeting rooms. It would be for some staff, as I understand they are outgrowing some of their facilities. It would be for increased summer camp. It would house a whole lot of things. Some of our discussion and why it sits at, on the additional options is, one, as Councilmember Griffon said, the appetite for bonds is pretty low right now. And so it by itself, each penny is about $13–14 million. So you can equate that out. 47 million is a few cents just by itself. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Well, the summer day camp is seasonal. So what would be, I mean, are you building for the peak time? Are you building for the average time?
So it's both. It's not just summer day camp. Summer day camp obviously is one of the motivating factors because we sell out within 30 seconds. Other motivating factors are after-school programming and stuff. For instance, basketball, volleyball. We get a lot of rec uses at a lot of our facilities that we just can't accommodate, or request for facilities that we just can't accommodate because we don't have the space for it.
The basketball would probably be year-round.
Yes, no, basketball would be year-round.
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 We knew what you meant.
Yes. Meeting space for HOAs,
That would be
we
year-round.
constantly get that request for that. We get programming requests, not at our libraries at capacity, but this would be another facility that could be able to handle those
All
type
of those are
requests.
justified. My question is summer day camp, because it only happens during the summer.
Correct. And the other big one I want to throw out there is a singular voting location that's consistent and doesn't move. That's something that we get requested quite a bit.
Well, let me just mention that of all the facilities that we have, and y'all went personally and looked at, the worst-case facility, in my opinion, is the old library, which is now the activity center in the downtown district of Friendswood. It is the oldest, and it needs the most repair, and to repair it would cost more than rebuild it. And there's approximately 1,200 people that flow through that activity center each month, and those people are coming to our downtowns. They're coming to our shopping centers. They're coming to our restaurants. They're coming to eat. So for all the facilities that have been mentioned, for this one to be in the additional section makes no sense to me at all. I do away with all of the facilities that you have listed and put this one as number one because it's the only one that really needs to be built at this time, in my opinion.
And we had, and I'll clue you in on a little bit of our discussion, we had a complete meeting that we discussed nothing but the recreation center because of that and our committee was split, which is one reason that it was in the middle. Some of our discussion was, do we keep it downtown? Do we go to Lundy Lane? We even had.
I am totally opposed to moving the activity center to Lundy Lane. This facility, like our library, once you dissipate your downtown and you send your fire departments out and you send your police departments out, you decimate your downtown. And there's a lot of people that come to downtown now and it's getting better. Some people might disagree with that, but there are a lot of people that flow through this downtown recreation center. And it's an important facility for those people who are risking their dollars to open restaurants and to make things happen in our downtown district. And for me, I don't need a fuel station. I don't need to add on to the fire station that we just rehabbed, or one of them that we just rehabbed. This is the most important facility in the downtown district. I just see that, in my opinion, as priority one. And you could just do this facility as a package on its own and not raise any taxes on anybody. If you can do $50.9 million worth of bonds and you do 37, you're not going to raise a penny, not even a penny. Actually, we can lower the tax rate. And if you put all the drainage over into Parks and Rec underneath our enterprise funds, which we charge people for, utilities for. We put it under enterprise funds. That's all you need. But
So-
I'm going to talk about that maybe in a workshop or someplace where I think that I might be better heard, but
So,
that's kind of my opinion.
Councilmember Griffon, just one point of clarification. You are correct. If this was the sole item on it, we can do it for less than a penny, because the cost is quite a bit lower. And what could, I'm going to call her General Hampton's about to say, is that we cannot use enterprise funds for drainage. It's illegal.
You can't, you can't do
Not even
water,
for
sewer?
No. So water sewer is limited to water and wastewater. Drainage is considered separate and is a general fund item.
What I'm saying is wastewater and sewer improvements in our drainage package.
The auditors and the attorneys would not agree with that, and I don't want to put words in Karen's mouth. But we cannot use our enterprise
Storm
funds.
sewer improvements, it's not Parks and Rec. I mean, it's not Public Works.
Public Works has a streets and drainage component that's paid for out of the general fund, not the water and sewer fund, because legally it cannot be paid for out of the water sewer fund. But we do have some funding for parks that we get parkland dedication and things like that. But the enterprise fund we legally cannot use those funds for storm sewer improvements.
Since we're proposing out-of-the-box ideas, go ahead, Mayor.
There you go.
Was there ever any consideration, we own half of that block, was there any consideration to purchasing the front half and maybe taking the library, combining it with all this? Because talk about meeting spaces, things like that, the library is constantly, I mean, I see those uses as being very much, they could work together.
There is. So as I started to state, one of the things, again, we had a whole meeting just on the facility. We had conversations on, do we split it? And I'm going to use a very crude definition. Do we have the non-sweat activities downtown and the sweat activities down at Lundy Lane? So the senior citizen, the meeting space, the staff space, do we keep that downtown? And then the basketball, the summer camp, those things that where people are outdoors, put that down at Lundy Lane. So we had that discussion. We had the discussion that, if we put some of the stuff down here downtown, we don't want a bunch of kids running around the downtown because we don't have the extra parking. So parking is a factor. We do have some space on Willowick. We did have much discussion about, can't we just purchase? Well, the person that owns that property has to be willing to sell it. So, we had many discussions regarding that. We asked, what can we get and just put it downtown? So that is one of the reasons that this fell in the additional. We didn't want to leave it off, but we did not have a consensus. We wanted you to have the information that we painstakingly went through to get here, but we did not have a consensus as a group. And so we could not put it on the main things, but it is important enough, as Councilmember Griffon has stated, that it is a need, but because of the appetite of bonds, because of the cost, because of the non-consensus, we could not put it in the core recommendation. But y'all, and we stated many times, y'all are free to do whatever you want with it. We just wanted to bring you all of the information.
Well, I was just going to reiterate, I agree with you, Robert, on two big things that you said tonight. First, the senior citizens activity building is the facility that we need. It's the one place that we got people using it constantly, and it needs to be addressed. But you also said something that was key, and that is that the voters don't have an appetite for bonds. So I know why you guys are a little bit reticent, because you're thinking, wow, if we put something on there that's, an additional penny just by itself, what are they going to, me, I'll say this right now. I'm going to say the same thing next month when we talk about this more. I say, hey, great thing about bond elections is that the voters get to decide. I say, put everything out there. I don't know about the psychology of putting too many things on a bond election. I'm not the psychologist. I don't know how people think, but I know how I think, and I love the opportunity to pick and choose, the things that I think are important. So let's talk about that next month, and maybe, we have another additional thing on the ballot, and that's for this. So.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and the most democratic thing you can do is put it out there and say you can vote for it or against it. And that's the power of the people and the power of the person. That's the power of the vote. So,
And so I've got, at the end, one of our recommendations to you guys is going to help with that as well. We do have some plans that were drawn up previously.
So council in 2024 authorized about $100,000 or thereabouts for a conceptual plan and programming for the rec center as well as the library expansion. So that was included, as well as looking at potentially combining the two.
So as Murad alluded to earlier, if we're digging up the 25-meter pool, why not go full force and do the 50-meter pool? From the cost I gave you for the 25-meter pool, a 50-meter pool would only be an additional $2 million.
yeah, let me just ask this real quick. These facilities like this, we charge fees, and we have summer camps, and we Parks and Rec charges fees, and I know that they're not very much over there at the activity center, but if you've got basketball courts and you've got things to bring in situations, they're not completely revenue minus. They're not revenue neutral, they're actually revenue positive. So I don't know, we might look and see, talk to James, and I know we charge fees for all the various places that people will go to rent, like the pavilion and that sort of thing, and it helps with maintenance, but it's just.
And we did go through and talk about some of the fees. The fees are pretty low, minimal, very low. I think the senior citizen, it's $5 per year.
So
I mean,
we can up the fees, but we could not up them sufficiently to build a whole new facility.
No,
Yeah, no.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm just saying it's not completely revenue minus.
Yes, sir, you are
Is there
correct.
enough land to do this? Where the pool is?
Yes, there is. And we had some preliminary layouts and designs looked at. Yes, ma'am.
all right, Stevenson Park, to make it our crown jewel. The other thing that they wanted to put in there was an aquatic play unit for an additional $1.2 million. And then this is the $32 million from the master drainage plan that you guys heard previous to my presentation. Again, the reason it is on the alternative is because the committee did not see this, but we do feel like it is. I felt, and the leadership team felt it was important to be shown in here, but we couldn't put it in the core because the whole committee did not see that.
And is this the same as the pool? It's an additional?
Yes.
Additional, yes. So the 20 million that they're asking for,
Yes.
and then this additional 32.
So there would be a total of 52 million for drainage alone if y'all were to include both.
So the next steps of our recommendation, just like we had a committee survey that went out, we have a survey that is keyed up and ready to be launched tomorrow morning to go out to all citizens to see their appetite. And we want you to have that information before you guys have the discussion next month. So would you be willing to vote for this? It would go out much like the trash collection survey went out. It would go out all electronically, not by postcard. And that way you're having some feedback as to what their appetite is, what you want, and then also a later question of, now would you be willing to pay for it as well? So we want you to have that information from as many citizens as are willing to fill out that survey.
And it would be everything you've talked about tonight.
Everything that we talked about, including the alternatives, okay? In July, at your next meeting, you would consider the propositions and items that would go to the voters. By August, you need to call a special election if you're going to have it, and then the election would be then in November. So we appreciate the opportunity to respond and make recommendations to you guys. We stand adjourned and ready to assist with anything that you need after that. But at this point, our core recommendation is the $50.9 million. And I'll leave you with any additional questions that you may have.
I just had one more little quick question on page 30, the 35th slide. And I looked at our 25, 26 capital improvement plans, and a lot of this is already repeated in our budget. That it was just unfunded in the 25,
Correct.
26 budget. So I was just looking over it. I believe I just need a point of clarification. Stevenson Park expansion, install a rubberized safety surface on the central playground. I believe in our current agenda, in the consent agenda J, we're spending $192,000 on something very similar to the central playground. Is this being taken care of tonight? And the same thing with the replace the concrete driveway to the gazebo for greater load capacity. I think we're spending $68,000 tonight on a driveway to the gazebo. Are those two items going to be taken care of based
They are.
on what we passed in the 25-26 budget?
They are, and we're going to take them out of that.
Okay,
out
that's
of
what
that.
I needed to know.
So part of the thing throughout this entire process, for instance, one of the facility needs was to replace the roof at the old food line, the Blackhawk facility. And we looked at existing funding to be able to tackle some of these projects rather than wait for a bond election and potentially amortize that cost over 30 years.
I love it. I love it. That's why we were talking maintenance. Sally and I both were just talking maintenance, and it looks like we're taking care of some of this from the 25-26 budget.
Correct.
You took bids on that, correct?
So those went through, the Blackhawk is an estimate. We haven't funded that project just yet, or we haven't done the contract yet. The driveway to the gazebo, as well as the rubberized surface at the playground, those are through buy boards, which are publicly bid.
But you're taking in the process of getting bids for the roof for Blackhawk, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Great presentation, Robin.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you for listening to all our questions.
Robin.
Great job of
Hey,
articulating a lot.
Could all the members of the Bond Ad Hoc Committee that are in the room, would you stand up, please? Let us, thank you, guys. We appreciate all the work you did and putting up with Robin and all that. Great job, Robin, great job. You hold the record now for the longest presentation I've ever sat through as the mayor. All good information. Now, don't walk out of here thinking I said something bad about you, because I didn't. I'm applauding that, so, but you do have the record. All right. 8C, receive and discuss an update regarding emergency preparedness, presented by Director of Emergency Services, Brian Mansfield. Lefty.
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 Awesome. Mayor, Council, thanks for the opportunity. Let's come and talk to you about the state of our emergency preparedness for the city of Friendswood, being that today's the beginning of hurricane season, June 1st. As a reminder that, hurricanes are not our only threat. We do make sure that all of our plans, everything that we do is all hazard. And also it pertains to several of our lifelines, safety and transportation, and the things that we need to operate day to day here in the city. We participate in preparedness and planning collaboration efforts with all of our community partners throughout the year, not just during hurricane season, but all year round. That includes the school districts, the drainage districts, our power companies, and then also our county partners and our state and federal partners as well. And then also you see here our faith-based. We're constantly meeting with groups, trying to figure out what we can do to help put us in a better position to recover and to respond to any kind of event we have. These are our plans we have for the year. As you'll see coming up tonight in the consent agenda, we do have like our mitigation plan for Harris County's in there, along with our strategic national stockpile. There is an agreement for updating that for our health district as well. So making sure that we have our plans for for the upcoming season, kind of all laid out, ready to go. It's kind of an update. We've pretty much closed out Barrel. This is the kind of update of the funding that we got, but this is also just kind of to give you a snapshot on some of the other slides I have about future needs and funding and some of the things that we may not be getting fund for in the future. So just giving you an idea of kind of where we landed from Barrel and that we have
Hearing
all
about that, Brian, because there's more and more talk about that.
So,
Hey.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
With regard to being able to cover emergency funds,
Reimburse for, if
Yeah.
there's a natural disaster, they're talking about that those funds will not be available.
And I had that in a couple of slides forward. If you'll let me get to that, I
Yeah,
want to
I'll
try
let
to
you
go through it as quick as possible, and then we'll get to those. Just real quick on our disaster, most of the time on our disaster contracts, those are some of the biggest costs that we have. You'll see, we just did RFPs, opened those on Friday for our debris removal, debris monitoring, and our logistics contracts. So you'll be seeing those come into you probably next month for voting and approval. And you kind of see a history of what we've had in the past for the big storm, named storms. Just a quick reminder on our debris management. And not even just debris, it's also our logistics, our generators. All these things have limited resources. They're hard to get. That's why we do planning. That's why we go out for these logistical contracts to make sure that we have the best chance to get those equipment in here for the best cost possible and to get those jobs done when we need it. And then debris management, it's always one of those things that gets the most talked about after an event, but us putting out all those notices and being patient with us, getting everything picked out in a certain order, in a certain way. The reasons why are because of life safety and because of the amount of debris that we have from these events. And then training and exercises, we did a communications training in April. Some alerts went out. Just a reminder from the public, when you get the alerts from your phone, you don't need another alert from the city to take cover or to, if it says there's a tornado, please take heed of what it's saying. It comes directly from the National Weather Service, which is a federal partner of ours, and they're able to send that information out and get it quicker than we can vet it anyhow. And then shortly after, we'll be sending updates as to what you should be doing and how you should be able to plan accordingly and what kind of effects we've had here in town. And then this is kind of where we start getting into the funding questions you had. For the 26, basically we're looking at our Galveston County and our Harris County thresholds for us to meet public assistance thresholds. So the state of Texas will be 56. We're hearing that they want to as much as 4 times this on the federal partner side as making these, but it would take legislation and some changes, so those haven't come down yet. This is the second year we've heard this. I think I presented something similar last year as well. Now we're still kind of waiting on what that could be. But a lot of that would look like for like a Beryl for us that we would not be covered on storms like Beryl, Laura, or winter weather, our smaller events. The bigger catastrophic events like Harvey would be still covered more than likely with those $10,000 or so. But these smaller events like that $3 million, that would be something on us.
So I would add to that, in comparison, Harvey was about 5.4 million just for debris removal. Beryl was 3.4, so not drastically different. The cost of the self-insurance, the cost of hiring a private entity to insure us is roughly $50,000 a month. So you're spending that much money a year, and their payout is based upon a certain amount of rain and a certain amount of wind gusts, whether or not you sustain the damage. So you may have a situation that you don't meet the parameters, but you sustain sufficient damage and you're out that money and the insurance doesn't pay out, or vice versa, we get a payout without sustaining a lot of damage. It's a risk that is rather large. If the feds aren't going to reimburse us as they have in years past due to the changing in thresholds, what I would recommend is set aside additional funding each year into our own account and getting interest on it. That way we're not as concerned with the thresholds being met. And then 2, we have the ability, even if those dollars are insufficient, to issue emergency certificates of obligation to pay for recovery and rebuild. We are right now, as sales tax is coming in higher, we are setting aside some funding so that we can establish that account.
Have we talked to TML, risk pools, things like that? Because I know that's kind of where the smaller communities, usually we don't have to do that, but the smaller communities will pull together to provide coverage for each other.
So we have started, we have, there's not a fund just in place yet for this type of insurance, but I would very much imagine within the next 2 biennium budgets, there will be one if some legislation passed for such.
Okay, thanks.
A lot of the surrounding cities are looking, and this is the parametrics that Murad was talking about, this one specifically for wind. So if you got a percentage of the aggregate, depending on how many miles you had sustained, or how many miles per hour you have sustained for these events, you're looking at, if you minus the annual premium, you're looking at less than 50,000 or 60,000 payout for a Beryl type storm. And then even on Hurricane Ike, we would have got about a right amount of $1 million or so. So
We don't know what the shortfall may be in the future because they just haven't given us any guidance on that. But if we know what we got for Beryl, which you just provided, and and we can kind of get a percentage on the increment that they may not fund us as much this time, say it's 18%, they're not gonna do it. Well, maybe all we really need to make sure we cover is the 18% over an event that we need to make sure is in the thing. Buying the insurance seems like it would be catastrophically expensive.
It would be.
What we need to do is put an incremental amount over what we think we might get if we get some good guidance from FEMA and Galveston County and Harris County and these places, and figure out how to put away the part we don't think we're going to get funded.
Most of the cities are looking for a smaller event, basically holding on their own, and in a larger event, that they would get some help.
And one suggestion would be if you're looking at 50,000 a month being a good appetite, I would say just set that 50,000 a month in our own account that's got its restrictions on it, obviously, and earn the interest as opposed to giving it to the insurance company.
Yeah, I would support that.
Did I answer your questions on that part before we go on to anything else? Just making sure we did the best we could. And then on outreach, we continue to educate the public on what they can do to be prepared and what we're doing to be prepared as well. I know that Murat has it on his report tonight, but we did get our storm ready certification for the 23rd year, so we're very happy about that. We have several things coming up. We've done Touch a Truck and Concert in the Parks. We're at several events, handing out trinkets and toys, but trying to communicate to the families. But there's a lot of new families coming from other areas that are not familiar with hurricane season or our flooding, our flooding needs here. So educating them on what they can do to prepare themselves in those events. Later on this week, I'll be doing presentations at the Rotary and also at the Chamber. So both of those are luncheons around noon, so please come by. And we'll go in a little more depth on what you could do to be prepared and as a citizen here in Friendswood. And then we have started a little campaign about what's in your kit. I don't know if you all have all seen it or not, but basically you're going around and making sure that we're trying to educate folks on what they have in their little bag of kit for emergencies. So, batteries, food, water, medications, your weather, flashlight, your NOAA weather radio, all those things that we've been talking about for years, but just kind of reinstituting that. And then these are the ways that here in town that everybody can stay informed. We do want you to go up there to Friendswood and get the emergency alerts so that we can be connected to you and get you information as quick as possible about what's going on before and after an event happens here in town. And these are all the other ways that you could stay and the public can stay up to date.
Michelle, you're doing a great job of pushing out to sign up for notifications, so thank you for that.
Yeah, our PIO group, our communications group is doing a great job.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Great presentation. Okay, item 9, Friendswood Active Transportation Plan. Receive a presentation and discuss the Friendswood Active Transportation Plan presented by Christy Miller with the Goodman Corporation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. Appreciate your time. Okay, so thank you for introducing me. Christy Miller. I'm a principal planner at the Goodman Corporation. I've had the privilege of being the project manager on the consultant side for the Active Transportation Plan this year. Tonight, we are going to talk about the Active Transportation Plan. I'll just give you an overview. Also an overview of the project's timeline, kind of how we got here, all the different steps that we've taken. And then also, we'll walk through some of the infrastructure-related recommendations that we have. So this presentation really provides an overview of the planning process, our key findings, and then our recommended projects within the plan. Your agenda packet has a more detailed sort of graphic final report, and then we've also provided like a 200-page technical document that if you want to dig deeper into anything that we're going to talk about tonight, we have all that information prepared for you as well. Our project team, this is a partnership project between HGAC, the Houston Galveston Area Council, City of Friendswood, and then on the consultant side, the Goodman Corporation. And then we also had a drainage consultant, Cascade Engineers, and then a engagement and sort of urban design consultant, MIN Collaborative, helping us on this. So the Active Transportation Plan was really developed to evaluate and improve connectivity, mobility, and safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and other non-vehicular users throughout the community. The plan identifies opportunities and then provides recommendations to enhance access between neighborhoods, schools, parks, commercial areas, and then other community destinations, while also supporting more connected transportation options for residents of all ages and all abilities. This graphic provides a high-level overview of the major milestones of the study and all the various engagement touch points. Developing the plan included technical analysis, including a really comprehensive view of your existing conditions related to active transportation. So we looked at crash safety or crash location, how many crashes there were, the severity of crashes that have to do with bicyclists or pedestrians, among many other things. We also did a lot of engagement, evaluating the existing infrastructure and mobility gaps. And so your resulting recommendations are intended to help guide future infrastructure investments, support grant competitiveness, and also provide a long-term framework for implementing active transportation improvements in a strategic and coordinated manner in the city. Each of the milestones and engagement opportunities that's listed here on the bottom, they are discussed in detail in your supplemental information. So if you have more details about who came, where they were, number of people, all that information is in there. Okay, so with input from the community and our steering and stakeholder committees, we came to the 4th of July celebration last year and set up a table, and we were asking the community to identify opportunities where they liked to walk, where they liked to bike, where they wanted to walk and bike, opportunities for trails, but also identify places that they feel uncomfortable doing those things. Maybe it's unsafe where it is or infrastructure doesn't exist. And so we asked for recommendations all across the city. You were able to drop a pin on an interactive map if you took it online, or you put a sticky dot on a large map that we had if you were in person. And it really highlighted all of those different places that they enjoy, places you feel unsafe, opportunities for new connections. The map really helped us generate valuable on-the-ground input that directly informed the recommendations that we'll go through in a bit for improving active transportation network in Friendswood. The results, we had over 100 opportunities identified all across the city, as you can see by the different colored dots here. And we reviewed those opportunities relative to your existing sidewalk and trail network, as well as locations of schools, parks, and commercial areas, because we wanted to connect all of those things together. And from that, we developed a primary active transportation network, which is on this map in blue. And it has the arrows. So it makes a connected network where if you wanted to say, I want to jump on here and take a trail or have a sidewalk from X to Y, like I can get there using this active transportation network. So on the left is the network. And then we looked at, along this network, we looked at gaps in the infrastructure. So where is a sidewalk missing? Where is a shared use path missing if you have an existing shared use path? Where are off-street trails missing? So how can we fill in these gaps for that? And along that network, of those gaps, we came up with 14 projects and listed here. And these 14 projects are really to help fill those gaps and complete the network if you implemented all of them. These 14 projects were presented to both our steering and stakeholder committee and to the community. And we asked all those groups of people to identify their top 5 of these projects just as a way to prioritize these. And so that was one piece of sort of the puzzle when we were developing the recommendations. Next, we did a needs-based analysis, which is a data-driven process used to evaluate infrastructure projects against each other. So the 14 projects were evaluated with each other. And it determines what is most needed based on the priorities or the evaluation metrics that were selected. And then each metric is weighted. And then we have a spreadsheet that does the analysis. So for Friendswood, we used 22 criteria across 6 evaluation metrics to compare and rank the 14 projects. Those evaluation metrics were safety, mobility, access, connectivity, public input, and then environmental factors. And then from there, we decided the weights, and so we determined the weights with input from your engineering team and also the steering and stakeholder committees, HGAC, and then the community. And these are the final weights that we use to evaluate those projects. So connectivity, one of the goals of the project was to connect things, so we weighted that highest, and then very, very close second is safety, of course, because we want to make sure everyone's safe here. So from that, we developed 5 infrastructure projects, or we selected 5 infrastructure projects that were identified for detailed development. And so we have these 5 here. We'll go through each of them individually. But so this really came from input from all of those different partners, as well as opportunity analysis, as well as your existing conditions and your existing infrastructure. And so we thought these 5 projects would be the best way to move this forward. So I'll go through each one quickly. The first one is 518 from Whispering Pines to Silverstone. This was ranked very high on the needs-based analysis, ranked #1 overall in the data process. So this would fill in about 2,500 feet of sidewalk gaps. You can see the map here. Also includes a pedestrian bridge over Cowart Creek and then intersection improvements at Winding Way. There is a TxDOT project underway or in development here, so there's an opportunity for coordination as well at Winding Way. This project is estimated to be about $2.3 million, including the pedestrian bridge, if you wanted to do that one. Next project is 518, just sort of the next segment, Silverstone to Eagle Lakes. And this will fill in about 2,900 feet of sidewalk, also includes a pedestrian bridge over Chigger Creek, and then intersection improvements at Leisure Lane, and then also includes the big intersection at 518 and 528. So it would include different intersections there. This project ranked #1 on safety, so if we implemented this project, it would have fulfill the highest need for safety projects. It also ranked #2 overall in the data-driven needs-based analysis there. Okay, our next project is Castlewood from the existing sidewalk just south of Greenbrier to Sunset, so leading up to the high school. This will fill in about 2,500 feet, 5-foot sidewalk on the north side of Castlewood. There is a flood conveyance channel there, so we'll leave that and then put the sidewalk kind of on there. This was #1 in public comments, so when the community came to the meetings or when they left comments for us, this was the one that was at the very top of many of the comments. It ranked kind of lower in the data-driven process, but it did rank pretty high in environmental and mobility connectivity as well. And this would also improve the intersection at Castlewood and Greenbrier, so just making high visibility crosswalks and making it a little bit safer and a little bit, so pedestrians are more visible there. Okay, next is Greenbrier from Castlewood to Buckingham, so sort of the T intersection there. This is gonna be 3,800 feet on one side and then 1,500 feet on the other side of sidewalks, so a total of 5,300 feet of sidewalks would be improved here or added here. It also includes, if you did this in isolation, it would also include those intersection improvements at Castlewood and Greenbrier as well. This one kind of ranked middle of the road for public comments. It ranked about middle of the road for the data-driven analysis as well. But it did have a lot of environmental benefits if it was implemented as well. And finally, the intersection of 528 and Bay Area Boulevard. So we would suggest, our proposed project is intersection improvements here to include the ADA ramps at the corners, pedestrian refuge islands where they're applicable, where they're possible, and then to really shorten those crossing distance, and then converting that intersection from span wire to mast arm to improve resiliency a little bit safer. This project will, obviously, we know the Friendswood Town Center is coming nearby, so there's gonna be additional traffic here, so we really need improvements. There's also, at this intersection, there's already been serious injuries and fatalities, so this would really improve safety in this area as well. So in addition to those 5 sort of priority infrastructure projects, we also identified several gaps in your existing sidewalk network. You have over 200 miles of sidewalk in Friendswood. You're doing great. It's amazing. There are just a few little gaps that we identified into 3 categories. Under 350 feet. So typically those can be done quickly without a lot of detailed engineering, not a lot of drainage mitigation. Then sort of that middle of the road, if it's adjacent to or on a TxDOT facilities, that takes a lot of coordination with TxDOT, so we group those together. And then we identified 2 pretty long stretches, so over 350 feet, that would require more detailed engineering and drainage mitigation. So I'll just walk through those very high level. So these are the less than 350 feet here. We have 9 projects here. They're shown on your map, so kind of scattered across the city. We have it on Castlewood, Towns Road, Silverstone, Briar Meadow Avenue, Winding Way Drive, Leisure Lane, Killarney Avenue, Mossy Stone, and Crescent Drive. And these really focus on filling in the smallest gaps with the largest network connectivity improvements. So kind of the biggest bang for your buck here. And these would help connect to that primary active transportation network. So often connecting an entire neighborhood full of sidewalks, but there's just one little stretch that doesn't have a sidewalk. So if we filled in that gap, this whole network would be connected to that. So if you implemented all 9 of these under 350 feet projects, your total length here is about 1,500 feet of sidewalk for a cost of about $230,000 for these 9 projects here. Your next section is the sidewalks that are adjacent to or on a TxDOT facility, so a little bit more coordination, still pretty geographically dispersed across the city. There's 9 sidewalk gaps here that were addressed on Blackhawk, just next to the part that you're already improving. And then also Marianne, Castlewood Avenue, another section of Castlewood, Falcon Ridge Boulevard, Oak Drive, Friendswood Parkway, Cypress Point, Friendswood Trail, and then Championship Drive. All the different project information is here and supplemental information as well. If you implemented all 9 of these projects, you'd have about 1,500 feet of additional sidewalk for a cost of about $235,000 for this segment. So we're at about $500,000. And then finally, our bigger projects are, we have 2 of them at 518 and North Friendswood Drive, and then also Laura Lee Drive. So this would kind of connect, there's a larger part without a sidewalk, but it would connect to your existing network and some of your other active transportation network, your other projects that you're going on. So here we have a total length of 2,750 feet at a cost of $225 for if you wanted to implement these 2. Again, these 2 would take a little more detailed engineering and very likely need drainage mitigation just because of their length. So if you wanted to do all the sidewalks that I talked about today, you'd get about 5,800 feet of sidewalks, and then all the gap projects is about 700,000 that we've identified here. And then the last part of your Friendswood Active Transportation Plan is the Active Transportation Toolbox. And so this is provided in your supplemental information as well, so you can have more information there. But it's really, to summarize, it's a collection of representative treatments that can be applied throughout the community and can be used to promote consistent and coordinated application of active transportation network in the city. And then each of these 4 sections, multimodal, pedestrian, bicycle, and then other active transportation types of facilities, we provide guidance on how that treatment can be implemented, potential amenity options for that, like benches, trash cans, that kind of thing. And then also state and national implementation resources. So if you wanted to look at how is AASHTO doing it or how is NACTO doing something, we provided those resources as well. And then that way those resources can guide the city during your planning, design, and construction processes for these, if you wanted to implement any of this. And that is all I have for you tonight. This is our HDAC contact information. Shun Zhao is the project manager. She's right over there. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Shun can also take them after the meeting as well.
I just have one question.
Sure.
The cost of the connections, if you will, especially that included the pedestrian bridges, were rather expensive. Are there any grant opportunities?
Yes,
matching
there
funds?
are grant opportunities for that, particularly if there's a nexus with safety and if there's a nexus with near the schools too. There's SS4A, there's other TxDOT and HJC opportunities, there's other state and federal too. So we tried to come up, those 5 projects, we really tried to think of tried to pick those 5 based on things that were actionable, implementable, and good candidates for different funding sources, depending on what's available each year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
Sure. Any other questions?
Just one quick question.
Sure.
I know you may have heard earlier, we were talking about the intersection of Bay Area Boulevard and 528.
Yes.
Any overlapping work with that intersection and that intersection that you discussed earlier?
There could be some overlapping work. I don't know the specifics. I did listen to it, but I don't know the specifics.
I was like, wow, now we're hearing it again. That intersection is getting
Yes.
a lot of attention tonight.
There, if you looked in your, you look in your supplemental information at the crash heat map, which shows you the density of crashes, so the number of crashes that happen in the same location, that area lit up like a Christmas tree. So there are already a lot of crashes there, and we don't even have all the development that's planned to come. So imagine just more people walking, biking, more people driving in that area. So I think improving both intersections would probably be a good plan or a good idea.
One thing I would just like to note real quick, much like the master drainage plan, we didn't have the benefit of having this study completed. It was a long-term study while the bond committee was doing their work. So
Right.
we can definitely add to dollar amounts if council is inclined to have a bond election to accommodate some of these recommendations.
Thank you. Now, I did see there was $1 million for sidewalks, so I've identified 700,000 for you.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
But
Keen
but
eye.
we, your community planning department and as well as your engineering department and your Parks and Rec, they were all part of our steering committee, so they have seen these sidewalk recommendations as well, and they've been provided all of the information that we have as far as our drainage consultant looked at them to make sure it was at least feasible from a flood conveyance perspective. They also, and the pedestrian bridges to make sure that those areas could accommodate an additional bridge section. And we also provided all the GIS files and everything like that. So we've shared all of that information. So hopefully, I'd like to see some of those show up in your bond. So we'll see. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say thanks to HGC, thanks to you, the Goodman
Yeah, thank you.
Company, Sally, Murad, Hill, who are all tied us in with HGC and bring these opportunities, these grants that can do studies like this. And once we approve this, we'll have, the means to go out for some of these grants that we'll start looking for. So,
Absolutely. You'll be hearing from me then.
great.
Okay. If there's no other questions, then I will take my seat. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to 9B, I'll just give you a little headline here. After we do this item, we're going to take a quick hygiene break, and I think some of us might run outside because we have a new fire truck outside. And while the light is good, maybe we get a city council picture out there by it.
Hey.
Mini touch a truck.
Touch a truck, yeah. Shotgun. Can't drive. All right, so item 9B, consider a resolution adopting the Houston-Galveston Area Council's Friendswood Active Transportation Plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more questions or discussion on this? All in favor? All right, passes, and
You want to do the zoning deal and get them out here too and then go? Just before the city report?
firefighters have to leave too, so
Well,
let's go.
gotta wait.
Everybody's got to go.
Sorry, Adam. Gotta wait.
Okay. Get going here. Zone change request for 2350 South Friendswood Drive from SFR to CSC. It's now 8 o'clock. And I call to order this public hearing concerning a request for a zone classification change for the property located at 2350 South Friendswood Drive, also known as a 2.4367 acre tract of land, more or less, out of the Lot B Sloan subdivision, out of the BW Camp Rice Farms in the John Dickinson League, Friendswood, Galveston County, Texas, to change the zoning from single-family residential to community shopping center. Aubrey Harbin.
Good evening. I'm just going to give you a little recap of this. This is about a 2.4 acre tract of land that has frontage on 518. They are requesting to change the zoning from residential to commercial. This is in line with our future land use map. And the required notices were sent out and published. The future development of the property will require a plat. This used to be a part of the green piece across the street before they built 518. So we'll have to replat it to clean that up. Planning and zoning did forward a positive recommendation following their public hearing on May 14th.
Thank you. Well, there being no one desiring to speak on this item, I now close the public hearing for a zone classification change for property located at 2350 South Friendswood Drive, and we move on to item 10B. Consider an ordinance authorizing a zone classification change for the property located at 2350 South Friendswood Drive, also known as 2.4367 acre tract of land, more or less, out of the Lot B Sloan subdivision, out of the BW Camp Rice Farms in the John Dickinson League, Friendswood, Galveston County, Texas, to change the zoning from single-family residential to community shopping center.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? I don't know who would build a house there.
Aubrey, what's the track across the street? What is that zoned? Commercial also?
Across 518,
No, across.
Across Old
from
Road.
This, old road.
Neighborhood commercial,
That's neighborhood commercial.
yes.
Okay. Go get him, Adam. Item 11, city manager's report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Presented by city manager Murad Kabiri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, we're going to recognize our scholarship recipients from the Waste Connection Scholarship that's given out annually. From Friendswood High School, we have Corey Weldon, who will study exercise science at the University of Mississippi. I will hold off on the Clearbrook one. Clear Springs High School, Julissa Torres will be studying general studies at San Jac and then transferring to a four-year university. And the best of all schools, out of Clearbrook High School, Olivia Espinoza will be studying architecture at the Harvard of the South, University of Houston. I do want to recognize Detective Sills, who was recently named our Galveston County 50 Club Officer of the Year. But I'm going to ask Chief Rogers to come up and say a few words about Detective Sills, and he would like to say a few words himself. Chief?
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Mayor and council, we'll just take a few minutes here to recognize Detective Sills on the Galveston County 50 Club Officer of the Year Award. We do this every year. What we'd like to start doing is acknowledging them here as well for their great work. We know a lot of you guys can't make it down to Galveston there in the, every year therefore, as we recognize law enforcement across Galveston County. So, and his specifically was the work that he had done on the gold case where they were scamming elder victims, not only here in Friendswood, but nationally. And so that's what he got his pick from, and we pick an officer each year, and the competition is steep around the Friendswood Police Department there. There's a lot of good officers that work yearly, so we don't take this lightly at all. It's not we're trying to find folks to give this award to. They have to earn that, and Detective Sills has sure earned this award. I won't go over everything, but y'all are aware of the press release we did back in March concerning that elaborate gold scheme targeting our elder population. 6 individuals were arrested on state charges with initial combined bonds set at $22 million for all 6 of those, largest in Galveston County history for the total amount of bonds on 6 individuals. 4 search warrants were written by Detective Sills, written and served on homes and businesses across 3 different counties. 4 bank accounts, state bank accounts were frozen. 2 tracking order warrants were issued. 57 grand jury subpoenas were written and served. Federal bank freeze on an account with over $3 million in it right now that Detective Sills have done. Asset seizure in 2 different counties of 4 high-end luxury vehicles, cash, and jewelry. 6 victims identified with a total nearly $3 million attempted stolen gold out of those 6 victims that we identified. Based on the efforts and success of this case, it has now been absorbed by the FBI, has resulted in 6 federal indictments on just our case alone. So this case will be huge nationally and internationally as well when it's all said and done. So all state charges kind of are in the holding pattern right now while the federal government, FBI, has absorbed this case, which is exactly what we were hoping it would be done with. But what we are most proud of is Detective Sills is able to return all $766,000 of stolen gold to one of our victims. And she's in here with us tonight. We hope in the near future we'll be returning more stolen life savings to our victims in this case. The last point that I'd like to make before Detective Sills comes up and speaks with you all is that, we've had some long-serving members retire recently from our department. Y'all have honored them here. Once you see the quality of our new employees, just like Detective Sills and many others that are here tonight that are standing behind me, you'll see that the city is in great shape moving forward. Our depth on the bench is very deep, and I'm honored to lead a group of dedicated men and women just like Detective Sills. Please know that the future is bright for the City of Friendswood Police Department moving forward. So at this time, I'd like Detective Sills to come up. He'd like to say a few words to you.
Thank you. I don't think y'all truly realize how much that means to me. I really appreciate it. I wrote a little something here, so just bear with me. If I told you standing up here and receiving this award wasn't something I dreamt about since I was a kid, I'd be lying to you. Standing up here is surreal. Friendswood was the only agency I had applied to, and that wasn't by accident. I was going to spend 2 hours talking about how great the city is, but looking around the room, I'd be preaching to the choir. And I don't want to take up too much of your time. I was raised here, and now I'm raising my children here. Like so many of our residents, I choose Friendswood because of the safety that comes with living in this city. Name another city this safe that's just a short drive away from Southeast Houston, where the streets are rampant with crime and danger. Friendswood is different. And after spending years working here, I've learned that it isn't by accident. I didn't fully understand how Friendswood accomplished becoming one of the safest cities in Texas until I joined the department and started seeing for myself firsthand. Whether it's a mother getting $1 stolen from her purse or a senior citizen getting scammed out of their life savings, we react the same way, with speed, resources, and with common sense. The large gold case Chief mentioned tonight was handled exactly the same way. We developed intelligence, we acted quickly, and we used the resources available to us. And through a tremendous team effort, we were able to locate and recover $766,000 worth of a Friendswood resident's life savings and return it to her. That resident is sitting among us today in this room. She prefers to stay out of the spotlight, but wanted me to share her immense gratitude to the city of Friendswood. Under the direction of Chief Rogers, all the Criminal Investigations Division, Field Support Unit, and half a patrol came together overnight to make magic happen, and we got the job done. Recently, a federal agent reached out to me due to Friendswood having another precious metal case where we caught the suspect red-handed after tracking him an hour away from the city, attempting to send the victim's stolen property overseas, a lot like this case. The agent offered me all his resources, which were a lot. He just asked that I teach him how we are catching these suspects. The truth is, it's not some secret intel that we possess or tradecraft we aren't sharing. It's the culture we have and the way we respond that sets us apart. The gold case is now under the umbrella of the FBI, so there isn't much I can discuss about it publicly, but I can tell you this. During that investigation, I sat with Chief Rogers in front of city management, asking for resources that would require sacrifice, planning, and oversight. Without hesitation, that request was met with a handshake and reassurance that the city would continue to stand behind us and provide whatever we needed to finish the job and give us the best chance to do right by our victims. That's the kind of support that makes outcomes like this possible and shows the police department that city management shares the same culture we do. For their role in making this support possible, I'd like to recognize our city leaders tonight. I'd like to present them with a special challenge coin as a token of appreciation for their trust and commitment.
You got 70 more slides?
Yeah. All right, I'd like all for y'all to take a look at the coin. I want to mention that this coin carries special significance and meaning. It was created specifically for an operation I coined, Operation Leprechaun, by our Criminal Investigations Division and made possible by the Friendswood Police Association, and is reserved only for those who directly contributed to the operation. It isn't something that can be purchased or handed out casually. It represents the collective effort, sacrifice, and teamwork that made this case successful. All right, so I've also been hearing a lot of murmurs around the PD. Everyone saying Sills exhausted the overtime budget for this year.
We'll find some more.
Now look, I'll be honest, there's a lot of truth to that, okay? But on a serious note, I'd like to recognize someone who carried a burden that doesn't show up on any case report or overtime sheet, my wife, Darian. During this investigation, there were countless nights when at the last second I couldn't come home. Calls turned into meetings, meetings turned into intel led to search warrants, etc. Meanwhile, Darian was at home pregnant, taking care of our 1-year-old and our soon-to-be teenager, and somehow keeping everyday life running without missing a beat. My wife understood the assignment and held everything together at home so I could focus on the job. Sweetheart, I couldn't have done any of this without you. You deserve a shout out and you deserve a lot more credit than you'll ever ask for. Lastly, I'd like to dedicate this award to someone who has never asked for recognition. A Marine Corps veteran, a 30-year cop retired from the Harris County Sheriff's Office, a man responsible for executing hundreds of felony warrants on violent offenders, including kicking in doors alone, putting his life on the line on a regular basis. He missed nights at home due to workplace injury caused by scuffles, which would ultimately land him in the hospital. Yet at the same time, kept the terrifying nature of his job away from his only child, who just wanted his dad to come home safe. This is for a man whose legacy I can never catch up to, and a man who never did it for an award, my father, David Sills. This last year has been tough on his health, and he couldn't make it here tonight, but he's here in spirit. Dad, this one's for you.
We're going to do a group picture with council as well. And then Chief. And then if you'd like to have your family or your wife.
If y'all want to come around front.
You want all of us or just the mayor?
All of y'all.
All of us.
We'll do one with council and then we'll do that. All right, if everyone can kind of turn in a little towards, yeah, perfect. All right. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. All right, and then if you could get your family. Is your family here? Yeah. And then chief as well, and then maybe the mayor and city manager. Congratulations, thank you so much.
All right, moving on, and I promised the mayor I'd be quick. I want to recognize our Keep Friendswood Beautiful for the third time in a row, and I say in a row because once you earn this grant, or win this grant, you're not allowed to get it for a 5-year period or thereabouts. So the first year we're eligible, we secured it again, $250,000 grant to beautify a TxDOT roadway here in Friendswood. The only thing I asked of Keep Friendswood Beautiful is not to rip up the landscaping in 518 this time, and we'll find another project. Next up, I'd like to recognize our the Department of Emergency Services. They secured another recognition from the National Weather Service as a storm-ready city. We've held this designation since 2003, so it's quite an accomplishment. It's no small task, obviously, to be prepared for storms and emergencies. Our Department of Emergency Services steps up time and time again to provide protection for our community. As you all know, I was about to skip an item. The police department recently secured a grant with Firehouse Subs. First time we've secured this grant to provide 33 AEDs, life packs for each of our police vehicles. And our own chief of EMS will be training our officers on how to utilize the AEDs once the program is unveiled. So thank you, FPD and EMS.
He is winning a Firehouse Subs. Isn't that appropriate?
It is very appropriate. I don't know how it happened, but it did, yes. But no, it is appropriate.
They do have a new fire truck, right?
They do have a new fire truck, yes, sir.
Might not have won the Firehouse Subs.
As you all know, we're coming up on the 4th of July celebration honoring America's 250th anniversary. This year's theme is Party Like It's 1776. There will be a grand parade down Friendswood Drive starting at 10 a.m. It's always well attended. I encourage any and all to go out there and watch the floats go by. This year, we will not have a day program. There will be, obviously, following the parade, there will be awarding the best floats at the Stevenson Park. But the day program is being moved and combined with an evening program to get better vendors and better turnout that will start at 7 o'clock p.m. at Centennial Park and will last roughly till about 9:45, 10 o'clock with fireworks starting somewhere around 9:15.
What time will that new fire truck be going by? Because that's what I'm going to be driving.
At about, well, you're going to start the parade, so 10:01.
The fire truck be at the first.
I'm sure we can get that squared away, but rather than getting multiple vehicles, maybe we put all of council on that fire truck.
There you go.
There we go. You hear that, JT?
Just put all the council on the fire truck.
Okay.
Can we vote on that? No.
You don't need to vote on it.
Yes. Next up, I want to recognize Brian Leha in our municipal court. He was recently awarded the 2026 TCCA Annual Scholarship. Out of 40 applicants, only 5 is selected across the state. He was also awarded an honorable mention in the 2026 Impaired Driving Safety Award by the Texas Impaired Driving Task Force and TxDOT. So great job, Brian. Pat, please pass along our thanks to. Thank you. That's it. Any questions?
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on, item 12, 12A, consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute a tender agreement with Travelers Casualty and Surety Company of America and Harper Brothers Construction LLC for the utility relocates at Clear Creek Utility Bridge Project. Rod, tell everybody what we're talking about.
So real briefly, this particular project was funded by Community Development Block Grant mitigation dollars back a couple of years ago. As you know, those are U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development dollars. When we completed the engineering and environmental for the project and went out for bid, we only received one bid. Federal law prohibits us from awarding a contract to that singular bid, so we had to rebid the project, and lo and behold, similar results. Craycon, the bid recipient, the one that won the award, unfortunately has not been able to complete their project in a timely fashion and to a quality that we expect. So we have notified them that we are terminating their contract with us and executing the insurance company's surety bond that exists for the project. We're on the tail end of finalizing negotiations with the surety company and ask council to just authorize me to execute it once those negotiations are complete by our city attorney.
Great. All right. Do I have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? 12B, consider the election of the mayor pro tem. Now, we have sort of a way that we do this, and we have been rotating people through the mayor tem position. We pick the person with the most experience on council that hasn't done it yet, and that is Michael Ross. So I'm moving right now to elect Councilmember Ross as our next mayor pro tem.
I second the motion.
Mayor, okay, any discussion? Anybody want to? All in favor? All right. Item 13, consider an ordinance amending the city's general budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 by approving Budget Amendment 8 and providing for supplemental appropriation and/or transfer of certain funds. Any questions or comments? Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor? And consent agenda, item 14.
Move to approve.
Second.
Can I pull E for discussion?
Item 14, okay, so Sally, why don't you?
You want to make it?
I will amend my motion to approve the consent agenda minus item E.
And I'll second that amended motion.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, item 14E, consider authorizing the agreement for specialized professional ambulance billing services with Emergicon LLC through the cooperative purchasing agreement with the city of Euless.
These eyes, they're struggling right now.
I make a motion, we approve E.
And I'll second.
Motion is second. All in favor? All right,
Darn.
Are we adjourned now?
we're adjourned.
Which one did you?
Yeah. We're adjourned.
Well, we can talk about it. Meeting's over, so.
Meeting's over.
I didn't get my little meeting and I'm ignorant, so I'm